Well, holy smokers, guys, hope you guys are doing great out there. As always, just got back from vacation, which you know what that means. We got a bunch of videos coming on this channel this week, as well as financial education too. If you haven't subscribed over there, what the heck are you doing? Make sure you subscribe over there as well, okay? Big news in relation to Apple stock here today. A big downgrade came, which we got to talk about why this analyst came out and downgraded the stock, what this means for Apple suppliers, so many things like that, okay? Now, if you haven't been keeping track, Apple has had an amazing past 6 months in relation to its stock price. You look at this stock price, you go back 6 months ago, this was a $150 stock. And even after the negative move today of negative 2%, which is far exceeding what the markets are down today, okay? Apple stock is down much bigger than the markets, down over negative 2% today. It is still up basically about $50 per share in the last 6 months, which is unbelievable performance for that stock. If you look at the 6 month for Apple stock, even after today, it is up about 32+% in the past 6 months. So needless to say, Apple stock has had an amazing time the past 6 months, and actually led me to sell all of my Apple shares. I covered that in a video a while back. And actually about a week or two ago, my wife sold out of her entire Apple position as well. Apple stock just got to a point where I felt like it was at fair value, and I felt like the money could be deployed in some other stocks out there. And their last earnings results were not bad at all, okay? Apple stock spiked on that earnings report because they had strong guidance and they beat earnings. Apple's March quarter earnings were above expectations. Apple's guidance for next quarter was higher than analysts expected, but let's just say one thing real quick, okay? Analysts had been saying so many negative things about Apple. They've been cutting their numbers so much that it was almost easy for Apple to exceed what the analysts were expecting, because analysts had gotten so bearish on the stock, so negative on the stock, that the expectations were kind of like easy to beat. Let's put it that way, okay? And then Apple also announced that they were going to do a $75 billion share repurchase, and they also upped their dividend to 77 cents per share. And that was the last time Apple reported. By the way, Apple should be reporting their next earnings here within probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. So their last earnings, it was seen by the market overall as you know, pretty decent. They beat what was expected and they beat the guidance. You had the $75 billion share repurchase in, you had the dividend up, and investors are feeling like, okay, we can get more involved with this stock, and that's why you get a stock that's been up 32% in the past 6 months. Now, it hasn't been all good news for Apple the past few months. Obviously, with the Huawei situation, the trade war, and all those sorts of things, it has hurt Apple's brand in China, and there's even been some boycotting of Apple products in China. Now, we don't know the extent to how much these boycotts matter or how many people are involved in these boycotts in China. It could just honestly be people that had Android products anyways and would never buy Apple products, and they just say boycott Apple. And maybe they were never going to buy Apple products in the first place, or it could actually be Apple customers that look at what's going on with the tariff situation and Huawei and whatnot and say, hey, let's go ahead and support our companies and let's go ahead and not buy Apple products in the future. So we don't know the extent of that, but obviously that was a big negative, okay? Just about a week or two ago, there was a super negative story, in my opinion, that just didn't get enough attention. And that was that Jony Ive was leaving Apple, okay? And if you look at Apple's stock price the next day, it hardly moved. And that baffles me, because Jony Ive is arguably one of the 2 or 3 most important people at Apple the past 20 years. And so you get Jony Ive leaving the company, and even though the company says they might still be involved with Jony Ive or use his new company as someone they outsource some things to or something like that, at the end of the day, this is Jony Ive leaving Apple, one of the 2 or 3 most important employees in the last 20 years at Apple, and people just kind of like acted like this was nothing. Investors just acted like this was no big deal. It was just another day. Oh, well, Jony Ive's leaving. Who cares, okay? And this is like crazy to me, because I'll see executives leave from other companies who are far less important than Jony Ive, and their stocks will move super negative. You have Jony Ive like leave Apple and the stock hardly moves. I'm like, you know, stocks either underreact or they overreact on news. It's just consistent. This is what happens with stocks. There'll be news to come out, either earnings or an analyst upgrade or downgrade, which we're going to look at here in just a second, or a rumor that was out there or some fake news story in relation to a stock or something, and it will move the stock super huge, either up or down. And this consistently happens with stocks. Stocks either overreact or they underreact. And in the Jony Ive situation, I think that was a big underreaction. For the stock to hardly move on the next trading day, I was mind-blowing by that. I was just like, are you kidding me? Are they throwing that much disrespect at Jony Ive? Because at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, that was disrespect. That the market basically said, we don't even care about you, Jony Ive. It doesn't even matter what you have done for the company or what you could have done in the future. We don't even care about you, so the stock's not even going to move. It was unbelievable that the investors didn't even care about Jony Ive leaving company. It absolutely blew my mind, okay? So let's get to that downgrade here today by Rosenblatt Securities, okay? Rosenblatt cuts Apple to sell, seeing fundamental deterioration, okay? Rosenblatt has cut Apple to sell from neutral, looking for fundamental deterioration over the next 6 to 12 months. Now let's keep in mind real quick, obviously this is a very short term in nature call, okay? They're talking about the next 6 to 12 months. So if you're an investor of Apple for the next 5 to 10 years, it probably doesn't honestly matter that much to you that the analyst comes out and says, basically Apple's going to be weak for the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, to you as someone that's going to hold the stock for 5 to 10 years, it probably doesn't mean that much to you, but it could mean that you get some buying opportunities in the stock over the next 6 to 12 months if you want to up positions, obviously, okay? Now they go on to say specifically, new iPhone sales will be disappointing and iPad sales growth will slow in the second half. And sales from other products, the HomePod, AirPods, the watch, may not be meaningful to total revenue growth. Analyst Jun Zhang writes, services sales growth won't be any help there either, the analyst says, okay? The firm's keeping its price target at $150, now implying about a 25% downside after Apple's recent run-up, okay? Just keep in mind this analyst has obviously been negative on Apple for a while. They have a $150 price target on it, which they've had on the stock for a while, which means as Apple stock has soared over the past 6 months, as we've seen up 30+% in the past 6 months, this analyst has obviously looked really bad having a $150 price target on the stock. They just look completely wrong in this situation, obviously. $150 and the stock's at 200 plus today. So they just look honestly like clueless in this whole situation. And something I like to look at in relation to like analysts and whatnot is like, where do they rank, okay? So you can use tipranks.com and you can actually see where this analyst ranks. They're ranked number 2,241 out of 5,237 analysts on TipRank. They have about a 56% success rate, okay? So I just want to give you that information so you guys can kind of see that analyst, if you think that analyst is a good analyst or a bad analyst or something in between, okay? Now this has brought down Cirrus Logic stock, which is a stock I own. They get a huge portion of their business from Apple. As we see, Cirrus Logic's moving down over 5.5% here today. And obviously that hurts my Cirrus Logic position. I think we were up over 10% on that position. So we just lose 5.5% all because this analyst comes out and downgrades Apple stock. And that's kind of something you have to deal with when you're in these semiconductor stocks. They're so volatile. They get huge portions of their business sometimes from, a few select customers. And if an analyst comes out and says, sells, ABC stock over here, and your semiconductor stock gets a ton of business from that stock, it can negatively affect Cirrus Logic even more than the stock that was actually downgraded, as we see here today with Cirrus Logic, because it's not like Apple stock's down 5.5%, but Cirrus Logic is, because Cirrus Logic gets 70-80% of their business from Apple, okay? Now here's my opinion on Apple and Apple stock over, let's say, just the next year, okay? I think iPhone sales will be weak for the remainder of this year and probably into 2020. I don't think Apple is going to have major growth, if growth at all, until the 5G iPhone comes out, which probably isn't going to be till the fall of 2020. So we're a year and at least a few months away from more than likely the 5G iPhone coming out, which I think will be the next major upgrade cycle for Apple, which Apple really hasn't had a major upgrade cycle in quite a few years. And I think there's just a lot of folks out there waiting for something that's really like a game changer in 5G when it comes to the 5G speeds. They're really a game changer for the whole entire industry. So in my personal opinion, if you're looking at Apple stock right now, I think it's a stock that's at fair value. I think if you look at all the valuation metrics around Apple stock, I think it's a stock at fair value. Can I say Apple's super undervalued? No, I can't. Can I say Apple's overvalued? Absolutely not. It's just a stock that is at fair value right now. And if I had to guess, if I was forced to be put on the spot and guess, is Apple stock higher in 6 months or 9 months from now or lower, I would probably guess lower. But I mean, that's just a complete guess. Trying to predict anything in the stock market and how a stock will move in the short term is literally just a guessing game. But if I had to guess, I was forced to be put on the spot, I would guess that Apple stock would probably go lower over the next 6 to 9 months until until that 5G super cycle kind of heats up, which I think will be a big game changer for Apple. I think that will help out all the suppliers in relation to Apple and all those sorts of things over time, guys. So that's kind of my opinion on Apple. It's just a stock that's at fair value right now. If you're buying into the stock, you probably shouldn't expect huge things. And if you're, buying into the stock and you're thinking it's going to go down 50, 60, 70%, I highly doubt that as well. And that's just kind of where Apple's at. And it's a great dividend stock. Their dividends are going to pay out in the future, going to be way bigger. They got the share buyback on right now, and they got that services growth, which is phenomenal. That's really becoming a massive, massive cash cow for the company overall, guys. So that's Apple. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. I want to hear from you guys. As always, make sure you smash the thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's video. And for my Tesla folks out there, I think we got a Tesla video coming on financial education too a little later today. So make sure you guys pay attention to that, all right? Thank you for watching and have a great day.